Malvern, you've got these hills and they're just there and they're lovely to look at, but you know, what's that really to someone of my age? So to have people chasing down the side of the hill on bits of cardboard, or having a car chase on Castle Morton Common, just seemed like a cool way to subvert Malvern.
There is a biochemical weapon on that hill that currently threatens the entire population of this country. It is due to be launched at 2100 hours. There are many civilians up there, and the Prime Minister wants them all brought back alive. If these guys see us coming, they will kill the hostages. No! We have patrols on all the roads and major footpaths. Somehow we've got to get a team through their perimeter, up to that beacon, and disarm that rocket.
If you did jump off there, you would just hit the rocks just for that. Before I decided I could make the film, there were two things I had to establish. Firstly, how much it was going to cost. The other thing I had to do, and really how I decided that I was going to be able to do this film, was that I took the cinema sequence and I did a storyboard, and then I looked at the shots, because it's the most difficult effect sequence in the film, and I looked at the shots and thought, can I do this? And the answer was yes.
He's dead.
Did you just shut up, mate?
I had an audition at Malvern Youth Centre, and I cast the principal actors. Of the three people that auditioned for the role of Sarah, and it was just down to two really, Lorna Jane Hamer and another girl, and LJ got the part and acted brilliantly, despite my dodgy direction most of the time.
That's really clever.
John McLaughlin I'd actually met previously on another film that I'd been involved with, and he just had the perfect sinister look and really scary eyes to play the part of bad guy Cameron.
You roll the dice.
The role of Conrad was offered to Josh Green. He was originally going to play Jenkins, but after the guy that I'd cast as Conrad dropped out, I offered the part to him. Unfortunately, he took it and he did really well. The casting of Dan was quite surreal, really, because Andrew Hill had applied. He was actually the first CV and headshot I received him, and he came to an audition. I gave him the part straight away, and that segued neatly into a script read-through. So he was instantly on board then. One of the first people to get in touch with me was Max van der Banks, who is a professional makeup artist. Had just come off a course in film and video makeup and was keen to put these new skills to the test. Did some brilliant makeup work for most of the shoot. The other key crew members were David Abbott, who did several roles on the film. Simon Wyndham. I actually increased the amount of martial arts in the script so that he could come on board and coordinate the fights. Mark Evans used to work as a defence analyst. He came on board for a few days to show the soldiers how to move in a group, how to look like a trained fighting force. The rest of the crew was mainly production assistants who generally helped out carrying things, going off and buying things, sitting in Pizza Hut, eating pizza, coming back 2 hours later. Right, well it's 3:15 on the first day of shooting. I still feel like we haven't started, like we're still in pre-production or something. Action! This morning was really intense. We got a little bit behind. We're about an hour behind schedule now, and I'm beginning to feel just a little bit worn, and I can imagine I'm going to be completely knackered by the end. What we've been doing today is scenes in Holywell, with the bad guys taking that over. We've done a Trivial Pursuit scene. We've got another to do this afternoon, and then we're going to wipe out the SAS team after that. It's a building with a spring on the lower floor, which is open to the public. and as soon as I saw it, I thought this is just a John Woo location. It had the perfect little room for the hostages to be held in. One of the on-set effects that David was responsible for was the gunshot effect.
The gunshot effects were achieved by taking an insecticide sprayer and a length of hose and then pouring the blood mixture into the end of it. The hose was then passed underneath the actor's clothing. Then when you pulled the trigger on the insecticide sprayer, out came the blood liquid and it looks like a gunshot.
The hills are the main location of the film. I realised that to be a true action film it needed a concept, terrorists to take over the Malvern Hills. So I increased the Malvern Hills role in the film and they became the kind of centre of operations, and it seemed natural that this rocket, this chemical weapon would be released from the summit of the beacon, and it's just a really nice, epic location, and sadly never seen in films or TV really. Unfortunately, the Malvern Hills conservators who kind of own and manage the hills, although they were very helpful in letting us go into one of the quarries and film climbing up there, they did not allow us to drive vehicles up onto the hills to unload all the gear, so we had a hell of a trek. Every day we filmed up on the summit of the beacon, we had to carry all this equipment up, which was really unpleasant, especially one day when we got to the top and it just started pouring down with rain. We had to call it off and all walk back down again with all this gear getting soaked to the skin. We had a bit of a problem with the cardboard chase, which is that you'd think that if you sat someone or lay someone on a piece of cardboard on the side of the Malvern Hills, they would slide down no problem. This is not the case at all. Don't try it at home, it does not work. You actually need to find just the right length of grass and steepness of slope. If the grass is too short, if the grass is too long, it does not work. You need the right steepness, otherwise you just won't get the speed up. It needs to be pretty death-defyingly diagonal. I got to be a stunt cameraman and throw myself down hillsides on cardboard with the camera gaffer tape next to me.
Neil gave a lot of freedom with the setting up of the camera angles for particular movements and making them look as good as we possibly could. Generally, the Hong Kong way of filming a fight would be to set up the camera angle for each movement or sequence of movements. LJ and John were very tolerant of my demands. I would ask them to do take after take after take and get them practicing the combinations, and everyone who had to fight in the film gave it their all and they didn't complain. They were very professional about it. Making a film such as this is completely different from making, say, some of the short sequences I've made in the past. The actors in the Beacon, they hadn't done a lot of martial arts, and even then, even with an experienced martial artist, it's very difficult sometimes to get them to pick up.
Castle Morton Common was another of the locations that me and Dave and some other friends used to use back in the old days to make films in our spare time.
Neil and myself have previously produced several car chases for other series we have done, so we collaborated on the actual chase. Although I came up with the concept for the kind of beginning of the chase, but then afterwards Neil had already had in mind two car chases we'd previously done, and he wanted to join those two together. The actual car crash, this is obviously the most stunning part of the chase because it's the first time we've been able to put together an actual crash. We set up the Ford Fiesta in the middle of the road and we drove the Mitsubishi Colt towards it, and we had the car stop just before it reached the Fiesta, and then for the actual crash we used as many cameras as possible and filmed that twice. Then we positioned the cars next to each other and we did a shot of Gert being pulled out as LJ's stunt double, The other important part of the car chase is LJ on the roof of the car and Cameron, or John, trying to shake her off. This is in direct homage to an episode of the series that Neil and I produced. The only problems we had with the car chase were that it tried to rain during the second day's filming. The highlight of that day was when Gert in his car went to look for the edge of the common and found it by sliding down the bank and into some bushes.
Next to Castlemutton Common is the Gullet, which is an abandoned quarry, one of many abandoned quarries on the hills, which has a lake in the bottom of it. So Geraint, one of the production assistants, offered to do it. We shot it with 3 cameras, mine, Dave's, and another one which we borrowed. Most of it was actually shot mute, so what I've had to do is record all the sound effects in post-production. Stuff like the guns dropping on the floor. The guns were plastic as well, so I'm adding metal sounds on so they sound more realistic. And even down to the footsteps, like 90% of the footsteps in the film I've had to add on one by one. So it's been quite a major part of post-production, but it really adds to the kind of Hollywood feel. But as I was editing, because the editing process was so long, I kept spotting extra details that I could add. For example, things whooshing past the windows in the train sequence of the film, just to give the illusion of movement. And there's a couple of shots where I've superimposed the hills, composited the hills into the shot.
Neil gave me a storyboard of the stuff he wanted doing on the computer, and then gave me a mini DV cassette with all the background plates on it that I would need. The light aircraft for the cinema crash and other shots. I found a model not of the same plane that had a similar body shape, but the wings were attached to the roof rather than at the sides, at the bottom of the plane. So I had to delete the existing wings and model some new ones, setting up a virtual camera to match the ones used in the shots.
Something quite dramatic, I think. I was looking for something quite orchestral, and quite a free rein to do what I wanted to do. You basically watch the film, just play along with the scene in real time on the keyboard. They use strings and trombones and drums and timpanis and things like that, so I thought, well, if I can use those sounds in the film, and I think I had about 4 weeks to do it.
My next project's going to be called Soul Searcher. It's based on a short film I made a couple of years ago. It's about a guy who gets trained to be the new Grim Reaper. It's a fantasy adventure with a teen romance story wrapped around it. So watch out for that. That's coming summer 2003.
Alright, hang on.
I sure hope you enjoy watching this DVD of the future.
Two lumps of sugar, some milk, and a cup of tea, a little donut and things like that. Thank you. Bye.
And a pizza.
Not man, it wasn't. We're not Americans.
That was acting. I'm an actor.